Go for Broke was not just another World War II movie. It was Hollywood's first hesitant apology to an entire generation of American heroes it had ignored. A film born from guilt that dared to put the nation's most decorated soldiers on screen while pretending the reason for their fight did not exist. What audiences saw was a rousing tribute to the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. What they did not see was a behind-the-scenes battle against studio racism, the quiet tension between a white star and the Japanese American veterans he portrayed, and a political message so complex it was banned in the country it was about. Today, we are storming the beaches of film history to uncover 20 weird facts about Go for Broke that will change how you see this groundbreaking film. And stick around for our bonus fact about the secret, unpaid role the real 442nd veterans played every single day on set. Number 20, the film's star was cast because studios believed a white man was the only bankable hero. The film's most glaring issue, the casting of a white actor, Van Johnson, as the lead, was not just a creative choice, it was a cold, calculated business decision rooted in 1951 racism. What audiences did not know was that Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executives refused to greenlight the film unless a major white star played the central character of Lieutenant Grayson. They argued, with the brutal honesty of the era, that American audiences would not pay to see a film led by a Japanese-American actor. This decision meant the story of the 442nd had to be filtered through the eyes of a white outsider who initially doubts them. It was a narrative compromise forced by prejudice, a decision that both made the film possible and fundamentally limited its perspective, ensuring the very heroes it celebrated were seen through a Caucasian lens. Number 19, there was an unspoken, palpable divide between the white and Nisei cast. The on-set atmosphere was not one of open hostility, but of a quiet, profound chasm. While there were no reported fights or screaming matches, the tension was constant and unspoken. What audiences did not know was that the Nisei actors, many of whom were actual 442nd veterans, conducted themselves with a quiet, professional dignity that stood in stark contrast to the Hollywood star system. They formed their own tight-knit group, eating lunch together and sharing stories that Van Johnson and the other white actors could never be a part of. This was not rudeness. It was a natural, protective segregation born from shared traumatic experiences. The set was a microcosm of America itself, two groups fighting the same war but living in separate worlds, a divide that no director could truly bridge. Number 18, the studio was terrified. The film's title and subject were too slangy and too controversial. Metro-Goldwyn. Mayer did not just hesitate on the casting. They were deeply afraid of the film's entire premise. The phrase "go for broke" was the actual motto of the 442nd. But studio heads found it to be incomprehensible, unprofessional slang. What audiences did not know was that internal memos from the era show executives pushing for more generic, patriotic titles like Honors in the Dust or the Purple Heart Battalion. They were also terrified of the subject matter itself. In 1951, the memory of the Japanese-American internment camps was still raw, and a film celebrating Japanese Americans as loyal heroes was seen as a potential political and commercial disaster. It took a massive campaign by writer-director Robert Pirosh and the quiet lobbying of veteran groups to convince the studio to take the risk, a battle they almost lost. Number 17, the film never mentions the internment, the central reason for the soldiers' existence. The film's most glaring omission is its complete silence on the single, most important fact about the 442nd. These men enlisted from internment camps. Their families were stripped of their homes and businesses and imprisoned by the United States government, yet they chose to fight and die for that same country. What audiences did not know was that this was a deliberate, cowardly act of self-censorship by the studio. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executives were so afraid of political backlash that they forbade any mention of the camps in the script. The film presents the soldiers' motivation as simple patriotism, erasing the incredible, complex irony of their situation. This historical whitewashing turns a story of profound moral courage into a simple war movie, a compromise that robs the real heroes of the very context that makes their sacrifice so unimaginably powerful. Number 16. The director made the film as a personal crusade. Writer-director Robert Pirosh was not just a hired hand. He was a man on a mission. As an infantryman in World War II, Robert Pirosh had served in Europe and had heard the legendary stories of the 442nd's heroism in the Italian campaign. What audiences did not know was that he was so moved by their exploits that he spent years of his own life trying to get their story told. He wrote the screenplay on spec, pouring his own money into research and interviews with veterans. When he finally sold it to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, he attached a condition. He had to direct it. He fought the studio at every turn, from the casting of Van Johnson to the refusal to mention the camps. For Robert Pirosh, this was not just a movie, it was a debt of honor. His Oscar win for Best Story and Screenplay was a personal vindication for his crusade. Number 15. The Nisei cast were not just actors. They were the real deal. The film's authenticity does not just come from the uniforms or the dialogue. It comes from the faces of the i.e. men playing the soldiers. A significant portion of the Nisei cast were not professional actors, but actual veterans of the 442nd. Again, what audiences did not know was that actors like Henry Nakamura, Lane Nakano, and George Mickey had lived through the very battles they were now reenacting. They did not need acting coaches to show fear or camaraderie, they just had to remember. This casting decision, while brilliant for authenticity, created an emotionally charged set. When they filmed the battle scenes, the trauma was not simulated for them. They were reliving it, a fact that gives their performances a raw, haunted quality that no Hollywood method actor could ever replicate. Number 14, the film was a piece of propaganda for the Korean War effort. The film's release in 1951 at the very start of the Korean War was no accident. The United States military, still dealing with segregation, saw the film as a powerful, if unintentional, recruitment tool. What audiences did not know was that the Department of Defense, through the Office of War Information, quietly endorsed the film, seeing it as a way to promote unity and loyalty among all Americans during a new conflict. The message was subtle but clear. If Japanese Americans could be the most decorated unit in World War II, then every American, regardless of background, had a duty to serve in Korea. The film was used in recruitment drives and was screened for troops, a piece of propaganda that celebrated a past sacrifice to encourage a present one. Number 13, Van Johnson, was initially hesitant and became a passionate advocate. Van Johnson's journey with the film mirrored his character's arc in the script. Initially, Van Johnson, a huge star, was not enthusiastic about the project. He saw it as just another war movie and was uncomfortable with the political implications. What audiences did not know was that something changed during filming. As he worked alongside the Nisei veterans and heard their stories, he became deeply invested. He was humbled by their experiences and angered by the prejudice they faced. After the film's release, Van Johnson became one of the Hollywood community's most vocal advocates for the 442nd, attending veteran reunions and speaking publicly about their heroism. His performance, which begins with cynicism and ends with profound respect, was not just acting. It was a genuine transformation captured on film. Number 12. The training sequences were filmed using real, brutal army drills. The film's opening act, depicting the grueling training of the 442nd, feels incredibly authentic because it was. The production was granted permission to film at Fort Ord, California, using real soldiers and real military maneuvers. What audiences did not know was that the director did not hold back. He worked with Army trainers to put the actors through genuinely exhausting and dangerous exercises. The long runs through the obstacle course, the hand-to-hand combat training, and the live fire exercises were not faked. The actors, including Van Johnson, were put through the ringer for real. This commitment to realism resulted in a level of physical exhaustion and genuine camaraderie that is palpable on screen, a testament to the idea that the best way to look like a soldier is to be treated like one, even for just a few weeks. Number 11. The film was banned in occupied Japan for a shocking reason. One of the most bizarre chapters in the film's history is its reception in Japan. You might assume a film showing Japanese Americans as heroes would be welcomed. You would be wrong. What audiences did not know was that the film was banned by the United States occupation forces in Japan for several years. The official reason was complex. They feared that the film's depiction of Japanese Americans as fiercely loyal to the United States would create confusion and resentment among the Japanese population, who were still grappling with their own defeat and occupation. The American censors worried it would be seen as propaganda, turning Japanese citizens against their own countrymen who had emigrated. It is a stunning irony. A film made to celebrate Japanese American loyalty was considered too politically dangerous to be shown in Japan itself. Number 10. The score subtly blended Western and Japanese musical themes. The film's powerful musical score was not just standard Hollywood brass and drums, it was a groundbreaking and subtle fusion of cultures composed by the acclaimed Bronisław Kaper. What audiences did not know was that Bronisław Kaper, a Polish-born composer known for his sophisticated work, went to great lengths to create a score that honored the soldiers' heritage. While the main themes were heroic and distinctly American, he wove in subtle, almost subliminal melodies and instrumentation inspired by traditional Japanese music. He used specific pentatonic scales and delicate woodwind passages during moments of reflection for the Nisei soldiers. This was an incredibly innovative choice for a 1951 mainstream film, a quiet act of musical respect that most viewers would have felt emotionally without ever consciously recognizing. It was a layer of artistic depth that acknowledged the dual identity of the film's heroes. Number 9. The film lacks a romantic subplot for a deliberate political reason. In almost every Hollywood film of the era, a war movie included a romance. Go for Broke is a major exception. There is no love interest, no tearful goodbye, no pinup girl tucked in a helmet. What audiences did not know was that this was a deliberate, conscious choice by Robert Pirosh. He felt that a conventional romance would trivialize the story and, more importantly, would distract from the film's central message, the bond between the soldiers. By focusing solely on their camaraderie and sacrifice, the film elevates their story to one of pure brotherhood. This was a subversive choice as it denied audiences the familiar comfort of a love story and forced them to confront the Nisei soldiers on their own terms, as men and not just as potential romantic leads. Number 8. The Oscar-winning screenplay was based on hours of real veteran interviews. Robert Pirosh's Oscar for Best Writing, Motion Picture, story was not just for a clever idea, it was for meticulous journalistic research. Before writing a single word, Robert Pirosh spent months conducting extensive interviews with dozens of veterans from the 442nd. What audiences did not know was that he did not just ask about battles, he asked about their childhoods, their families, their feelings about the internment camps, and their motivations for enlisting. He filled notebooks with their slang, their jokes, their complaints, and their philosophies. The film's authentic dialogue and character moments are not the product of a Hollywood writer's imagination. They are direct transcriptions and dramatizations of real conversations. The screenplay is, in many ways, a work of oral history, a fact that earned it the respect of the veteran community and the highest honor in Hollywood. Number 7. The meaning of Go for Broke is a perfect tragic translation. The film's iconic title is a direct translation of a gambling term that perfectly captures the unit's spirit. The phrase "go for broke" comes from Hawaiian Pidgin, a language developed on the sugar plantations of Hawaii where many of the Nisei volunteers were from. What audiences did not know was that the phrase literally means to bet everything on one roll of the dice. For the soldiers of the 442nd, this was not just a motto, it was a way of life. They had already lost everything, their homes, their possessions, their reputations, so they had nothing left to lose. They went into every battle willing to risk it all for a chance to win back their honor as Americans. The title is a perfect, tragic encapsulation of their mindset, a group of men who had been dealt the worst hand possible and decided to go all in. Number 6. The film was a modest box office hit, but its legacy was immense. Go for Broke was not a blockbuster. It performed respectably at the box office, but did not set the world on fire. In 1951, audiences were more drawn to lighter fare or films with bigger stars and simpler patriotic messages. What audiences did not know was that the film's cultural impact far outweighed its commercial performance. It became a staple in Japanese American communities, shown at community centers and veteran halls for decades. More importantly, it planted a seed in the American consciousness. It was the first major film to present Japanese Americans as loyal, heroic Americans. This slow burn influence was a crucial early step on the long road toward the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the eventual governmental redress for the internment camps. Number 5. The decision to shoot in black and white was an artistic and financial choice. By 1951, color films were becoming the norm for big studio productions. The decision to shoot Go for Broke in stark black and white was a deliberate one. What audiences did not know was that it was made for two reasons. First, artistic. Director Robert Piroche and cinematographer John Alton believed that black and white's gritty, high contrast look was better suited to the harsh reality of combat. Second, and more pragmatically, the film's budget was modest. Shooting in black and white was significantly cheaper, allowing more money to be spent on location shooting and securing the military cooperation needed for authenticity. The result is a film that does not look like a glossy Hollywood production, but like a wartime newsreel, a choice that enhances its power and realism. Number 4, the final speech is a direct address to the audience. The film ends not with a battle, but with a quiet, powerful scene where Lieutenant Grayson visits a wounded Nisei soldier in the hospital. His final lines are not just for the character, they are a direct message to the 1951 audience. What audiences did not know was that this was Robert Piroche's way of explicitly stating the film's thesis. Van Johnson's character says, "You are the guys that gave me a new slant on things. I am proud to have served with you. It is a moment of pure, unambiguous didacticism. The film stops being a story and becomes a lecture, telling the American people directly that they should be proud of these soldiers. It is a bold, almost theatrical, breaking of the fourth wall, designed to leave the audience with a clear, unmissable moral takeaway." Number 3, the film launched the Hollywood careers of several Nisei actors. While the Nisei actors were largely unknown before the film, Go for Broke served as a launching pad for a handful of them, helping to break down barriers in Hollywood. What audiences did not know was that actors like Lane Nakano, who played the quiet soldier Sam, would go on to have steady careers in film and television for decades. George Mickey, who played the wisecracking Frank, also found consistent work. While they were often typecast in Asian roles, their presence in major studio films was a significant step forward. The film proved that Nisei actors could be compelling and professional, paving the way for future generations of Asian American performers. It was a small but important victory for representation in an industry that was, and remains, notoriously difficult to break into. Number 2, the film directly influenced the long fight for redress. The film's legacy is most profoundly felt in its contribution to the political movement for Japanese American redress. For decades, the film served as one of the few widely accessible pieces of popular culture that affirmed the loyalty and heroism of the World War II Nisei generation. What audiences did not know was that activists and leaders in the 1970s and 80s, fighting for a formal apology and reparations from the United States government, used the film as evidence. They would screen it for congressmen and their staff, using it to tell a story that history textbooks had ignored. The film helped put a human face on the abstract injustice of the internment, making the fight for the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which finally issued a formal apology and payments to survivors. A little bit easier, it was a movie that helped right a historical wrong. Number 1, the real-life heroism was so extreme, the film had to tone it down. The most shocking fact is that the film, for all its depictions of bravery, actually downplays the almost unbelievable reality of the 442nd's accomplishments. The film shows them fighting bravely in Italy and France, but it can barely scratch the surface of their actual sacrifice. What audiences did not know was that the 442nd became the most decorated unit in United States military history for its size and length of service. They earned over 18,000 individual decorations, including 9,486 Purple Hearts. They suffered a casualty rate of over 300%, meaning most soldiers were wounded more than once. The famous rescue of the Lost Battalion mission, where they saved a trapped Texas unit, was even more suicidal than depicted. The film had to simplify and tone down the sheer scale of their heroism because audiences would have found it literally unbelievable. The truth is more dramatic than the fiction. Bonus fact, the real 442nd veterans served as unpaid, on-set technical advisors. The most hidden secret of the production is the crucial, uncredited role that actual veterans played every single day. The group of Nisei actors who were veterans were not just there to perform, they became the film's de facto technical advisors. What absolutely no one knew at the time was that director Robert Piroche relied on them constantly. Between takes, he would ask them questions. Is this how you would hold your rifle? Is that slang right? Would a soldier really say that in this situation? They would correct the positioning of actors, adjust the handling of equipment, and advise on the small, authentic details of military life that no research could uncover. They did this for their regular actors' pay, never asking for extra compensation or a screen credit. They were simply ensuring that the story of their brothers in arms was told right. A final, humble act of service from a generation that had already given so much. Go for Broke was not just a movie, it was a flawed, complicated, and groundbreaking first step. It was a film that tried to honor heroes while being too afraid to tell the whole truth about why they had to become heroes in the first place. It was a product of its time, full of compromises, yet born from a place of genuine respect and a deep need to atone for a national injustice. The film's legacy is not in its box office numbers or its critical accolades. It is in the quiet dignity of the Nisei veterans who saw their story on screen for the first time. It is in the small part it played in a decades-long struggle for civil rights. It is a film that proves even a flawed apology is better than silence. If this look at a film's hidden history shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies you only think you know. And remember, true courage is not just about fighting on the battlefield, it is about fighting for your place at home.